Hello and welcome. My name is Patricia Mensing from Awareness TV, and I am interviewing David Icke. Hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good, yeah. Well, it's been a hectic year.
It is, huh?
So I'm breathing a bit heavy, but we're still going.
Yeah, we are here in Amsterdam. This Friday you have a show.
Yep.
Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that later.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So, David, we have a lot to talk about today, and I would like to start with, in a lot of your readings, you talk about the Matrix.
Right.
So what is the Matrix?
Well, it's a big backstory. One of the reasons that people are held in servitude, perhaps the bottom line reason, is that the nature of reality is kept from us. And we obviously perceive reality as we experience it, which is this is a solid world outside of us that we're looking at now. But actually it's not. And this is what's the cutting edge of physics is now understanding. There is no solidity, there is no physical. And what we're actually doing is very much akin to a computer and Wi-Fi. If I was talking to someone who knew nothing about Wi-Fi, nothing about computers, and I said to them, there's a whole worldwide reality in this room which you can tap into, and anyone in the world can tap into it and experience the same reality that you do, then people would say what? They would say, you're crazy, you're mad, that's ridiculous. Where is this information? I can't see it. But you tell them about, or you talk to someone who knows about computers and Wi-Fi, and you say the same thing to them, and they'll say, oh yeah, Wi-Fi, computers, I know about that, yeah. What's the difference between you're mad, mate, and yeah, I understand that? Knowledge. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. Knowledge. And so if you can keep knowledge from people, particularly about the nature of reality itself, then you can keep them in a perceptual prison in which they will laugh, condemn, abuse, and wave away people who are telling them the truth. And so when you think, what does a computer do? It takes information in a completely different form to what you see on the screen, and it decodes that information into what you see on the screen. And what you see on the screen, what we call the internet, moving pictures, text, graphics, etc., only exists on the screen. Everywhere else, the internet is actually Wi-Fi fields and electronic coding and electronic circuits. And in the same way, this world that we are now experiencing is an information field, or information fields, which we are decoding in the very same principle as a computer. So if you look at what the five senses do, they pick up waveform information. Think of hearing.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking now, there's not words passing between you and me. There's vibrational information fields. Your ear picks up that sound wave, turns it into electrical signals, communicates it to the brain, and then the brain hears the words. And so everything that we perceive to be outside of us is actually in here. Now, of course, one of the great boons and bonuses for me was when the Matrix movies came out, because they gave a visual portrayal of what I'm talking about. So if that's the process through which we create reality, and there are so many implications for that, good and not good, then whoever controls the information we receive and we decode is dictating the world we live in. So what we call the matrix, or the simulated reality, is not a world, it's not a place, it's a source of information.
Okay.
So this is an information field which has been created very much in the way of the Matrix movie and theme, for us to decode and believe that we're in a world that is, quote, natural, and a world that has been created or emerged, whatever your belief system is, either by accident, what a joke, or through a religious god or whatever, but actually it's an information source which we're decoding. And while you're decoding it, and your perceptual reality is confined to it, then all the information you receive is being provided by it, because you are in this simulated world and you are of it, and you have no other source of information, thus this seems real to you. And this same source of information, expressed through the communication industry of the world, is feeding you this matrix reality as if it's real. How many programs do you actually see in the mainstream that are questioning reality? Tiny, tiny, almost infinitesimal number. So, what we call awakening is when you allow your mind to expand beyond the frequency band, because that's what it is. This is a frequency band of information, just like a TV channel, if you like, a holographic TV channel, illusory physical. Once you start to allow your mind to expand beyond its walls, you're now accessing levels of consciousness and reality that are not part of this simulation. Thus, the world starts to look very different. You are in this world in terms of your body is interacting and decoding this world, but your consciousness is tapping into a point of observation that's not of this world. And that's when people start to see the truth. Now, what happens? Those, the vast overwhelming majority, who are still in the program and of the program, they see anyone who has moved beyond it and seen it from another point of view. They are perceived as crazy, mad, mentally ill, having a midlife crisis. There was a wonderful example of this from the Greek philosopher Plato, with his allegory of the cave, where he's talking about symbolically reality, about how prisoners were in chains in a cave and only able to see one wall. And there were fires behind them, but they couldn't see them. And there were people walking past the fires, they couldn't see them. All they could see was the shadows on the wall. So to them, the shadows on the wall were reality. They were this world is all there is, this is the world outside of ourselves. It's not in here. And he talks about how one prisoner got out, saw that the shadows on the wall weren't reality, saw reality as it was, and came back and told the others, and they weren't very happy. And that's kind of classic of what you get. I used the analogy before of prisoners in a cell, and when one prisoner opens the door to get out of the cell, all the other prisoners grab him and pull him back. This is what's happening. This is what peer pressure is about. This is what intimidating people from what I call the arrogance of ignorance, psychological fascism, giving people a hard time for the crime of being different. That's nothing more than prisoners pulling an escaping prisoner back into the cell. And so one other part, interestingly, of the analogy of the cave
Yeah.
was that some of these prisoners became experts on the shadows on the wall, became brilliantly knowledgeable about them. And there are today's academics. They are today's academics. They are the people who are very knowledgeable about an illusion. They're very knowledgeable about this in terms of how they perceive it to be when it's not. And so this mentality, which is in the matrix and of the matrix, is what we call intellect. The whole system's dominated by intellect. Oh, he's a great intellectual, he's got a great mind. Yes, but has he got an expanded consciousness? They are not the same. And so the education system, which people, they come out of the womb and they go through it, being told what to believe is reality, all the way through their lives, and the media pick it up and all the rest of it, is dominated by the intellect. If you look at the way education is structured, it's all focused on the intellect, not expanding people's mind, not to make them critical thinkers, not to get them to let their mind wander and wonder and explore, but to tell them what is and to test them on what is. And you don't get good marks unless you tell us what is what we say is. And so this program goes on all the way through life. So the matrix is a source of information. Think of it as like a Wi-Fi field, which we're decoding. And while we're in it and of it, it completely controls our perceptions. You know, I observe the world. I think the vast majority, it is changing, hallelujah.
Do you know why it's changing?
But still the vast majority of people, I would say, apart from when they were very, very young, have never had an original thought in their lives. That hasn't come from this source of information. Because you look at education, you look at people, students in education, what are they doing? They're all repeating. They're not exploring and taking on. They're not exploring and getting further insight. They're repeating. What is an exam? Repeating what you've been told. What are journalists doing 24/7? They're repeating the official version of everything, basically. And I think that, you know, to answer the question there, people are waking up for a number of reasons. And one of them is that, you know, I've started this World Speaking Tour, which is kind of ongoing, in the summer of 2016. I thought the time was right to go out and really go for it, because what I was seeing was a lot of people who were uneasy with the world. Mm-hmm. They were looking at the world. They weren't into new stuff. They weren't necessarily looking at why the world was making them feel uneasy. Just felt uneasy. And when people are in that almost transitional state, you know, they've left the complete programmed attachment to the system's version of reality, because they're saying, I'm feeling uneasy. So something started to move. If they can get access then to information, which what my talks and books do, that say why they're feeling uneasy and why they're right to feel uneasy, because this is what's really happening, they go, whoa, this makes more sense than anything I've been told before. And then their awakening moves on, because they start to question other things. Because once people have reached the point where they have seen that something they completely believed they knew about is actually nothing like they thought it was, then the gateway opens. Because the next question is, well, what the hell else have I thought that is not true? And then you realize virtually everything.